It's the Growler with BD and J. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bet to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
All right. Welcome into the latest edition of PD&J here on the Growler. Pauliner Jr. and Jay Morrison with you on a Thursday jam-packed show today, Jay. We have we're taking like three shows almost and kind of putting them all into one big pile of it's gonna be hairy. I'm not gonna lie. There's gonna be some sadness, some good times, some bad times, some laughs. But we're gonna cover the state of affairs with the Cincinnati Bengals right now.
And there's a lot to cover. And it I mean, last week felt you couldn't tell what day it was because of the Monday game, and then it flows forward this week. Our schedule's all messed up. One thing that'll be normal, we'll get down and do a live show on Sunday, and we should be back on track. Will the Bengals get back on track? Who knows, but we will.
Yes, excited about that. We'll be down at BetMGM, Tom's Watch Bar at noon. So make sure you come on down there and hang out with us when you're going down to the game anyway. But you should expand your pregame time. That's going to be the better time. So invest in that. Come down, see us. You can win tickets to Bengals versus Steelers. You can get the exclusive parlay boost that I'm going to have down there, the Jamar bounce back parlay blue boost. It's going to be over receptions, over receiving yards, over on receiving touchdowns for Jamar Chase. You can only get it in person at our live show. So if you were going to make a bet anyway, come on down and do that. Hang out. All kinds of stuff we're going to be giving away and having a great time. So expand your tailgate time. Lean into that. That's the real experience. Sharing the misery with friends, with us. We hope to see you down there at BetMGM and Tom's Watch Bar. Come on down. We'll be there from noon to 1 before the Bengals and Lions game on Sunday. We're going to get into the news. We talked to Dan Pitcher, Al Golden, Zach Taylor, Jake Browning yesterday. A lot gleaned about where they sit in terms of trying to find some way to get this thing back on track. We'll get into that. There's going to be some very sad stats. Okay. I want to forewarn you. I think being a Bengals fan, we've been talking about, comes with a Surgeon General's warning at this point. I would say the sad stats are going to come with one of those as well. We need like Surgeon General's warning sounder or something like prepare yourself. Okay. They should be sponsored by the mood lift pills.
Oh yeah.
That's a good idea.
I tried to find some good stats to balance it out, but there aren't any. There's just none out there through 4 weeks.
There are none. We're going to have our Camargo insurance run, pass, or boot about the game on Sunday. A fun one. One that you can play with your friends when you're commiserating together. So we'll get to that. We will get to all of our stuff that we do in the prediction video today. We're going to have of course, the game prediction. We'll have a bunch of Growler Bet stuff. Jay's going to have stats. We're going to have the stats that matter, referee report, all of that stuff coming your way. And Mo Egger will join us, as he always does. And we're going to talk about what's the most concerning part of all of this. And that will take us down some pretty significant wormholes. So enjoy that. I promise you we're going to make it fun along the way. I promise you that the topics may be dark, but we're going to keep it enjoyable for you. All right. So let's dive into it, shall we?
Yes.
As far as news goes this week, I guess Charlie Jones showed up with an Achilles injury. We'll see how that plays out over the course of the week. No other major injuries if you're into that. Really, I think the news from yesterday was sort of the discussions that were had with Zach Taylor, Dan Pitcher, and Al Golden. And before we kind of dive into a topic, I just kind of want to bring you where a lot of talk about Jake Browning, the state of the offense in general. Everybody sort of is at fault with it. But I asked Zach Taylor, what is, they needed to add competition for Jake Browning. Does there need to be somebody else? Essentially, how long is the leash on the Jake Browning experience, which I have a story up on The Athletic now if you want to go read more about that. And he was supportive. It was, look, that's Duke's job. They have always laid out all the options, but we believe in Jack. Unwavering belief in Jake Browning was how it was termed. But obviously, that can only go on for so long. The state of things, the what's happening inside of that building right now is so gross that it's at a certain point you can't just keep doing the same thing. Here is Dan Pitcher is sort of talking about the gut punch that they're feeling trying to put this thing back together right now.
How much are you going through your entire playbook, your entire scheme, trying to come up with different things to think to yourself, this might spark us in a different direction, better direction?
That's just what we do. We could be 4-0. That's what we do. We could be 0-4. That's what we do. And so you have to be willing to explore a different path, maybe reinvent yourself in some area. You also have to be willing to make the hard decision that when it's not going good, but it's still the right thing to do because of who you have and who you are as a team, you have to be willing to continue doing things in the face of criticism or pressure that the things that you shouldn't be doing, if that makes sense. So it's a constant assessment of all those factors, and we try to put the best plan together.
When you do that, you have full faith that no matter what, it's going to turn out for the best in the end, even if the results aren't there.
Well, you have to. I mean, you have to. Listen, nobody feels the outcomes of this more than the players and the coaches in this building. When you go through something like you've gone through the last 2 weeks, it's a gut punch. Viscerally you feel it. But you have to turn the page and become problem solvers very quickly. And so that's just what we do. That's our job. That's how do you respond when you're in a position where you're not happy with how you're playing. You're embarrassed by how you're playing. And so how do you respond? And that's a challenge to our guys. I believe in the character of our players. I believe in the character of our coaches. And I believe we have all the ability in the building to get this turned around.
I feel like when we're in here, most games, you guys will say, no matter what happened, we're close. That usually, but after the last 2 weeks, do you feel close offensively?
Well, certainly the result of the last 2 weeks is not close. The way we played the last 2 weeks is not. Nobody could sit here with a straight face and tell you that was close to winning football. Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, it's the turnovers that make it look really bad. This past week, it really is, to my eye, is the penalties that started us down the road that made it look really bad. And so we got to clean up the things that are within our control. No more self-inflicted error. That's a main message to our guys this week. This game's hard enough. There's so many variables that are outside of your control that you have to react to once the ball's snapped. You got to control all the stuff that is within your control every play, down in, down out. And so if we do that, that will start us down the right path to getting to where we need to be.
They're not close, and you hear the visceral gut punch of what's happening inside of the building of these guys. That's a hard thing to pull out of. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is this is more than turnovers and penalties, and I understand they have to look at it that way. What can we control here? What can we feel like we have our grips on? It's so much more than that. And I think they have to go out and rebuild some kind of belief that they can be competitive. And that's something that they have never lacked because they always knew they had Joe Burrow. And that was the impetus of belief. It just, the last 2 weeks suck the belief out of you. When you don't have that, you get run out of the building in this league.
Yeah, and I mean the turnovers and the penalties are what start you down. That's what Pitch said. That's what started them down the road. The penalties started them down the road to the blowout against Denver. That starts building on itself because it's they said the Minnesota loss was an aberration just because all the turnovers and all that. But you could see it once those penalties started against Denver. Once it became a 2-score game, just everybody went flat. I think that the margin for error is so thin that they need everything to go right to just be what you said, just to be competitive. And once they fall behind, it feels like it's over. You could always count on Joe Burrow to rally the team, and that you saw it happen a lot of times. But that's not happening with the way this team is constructed with Jake Browning at quarterback. They have to get off to a fast start. They have to stay within a score to have any hope. Once it starts snowballing like that, there is nobody pulling out of it. And they talk all the time about every loss feels like a gut punch. And so you can only imagine how much worse it is. Maybe the punch is a little bit lower than the gut when you lose as much as like losing by 25, losing by 38 and all that. It's just, it's gotta be frustrating. And again, they know you have to flush it and move on. But that's during the week. That's your game planning and everything's, you feel good about the game plan. You feel good about how the game is going to go on Sunday. And then once things start going bad, that's when you worry about this thing really just falling apart on a given Sunday. And then if that's what happens this Sunday and it's 3 losses in a row that look like this, then you really wonder how it goes forward.
Yeah, and the easiest thing to do when a team is struggling like this, specifically offensively, with the way it's been, is point to the quarterback. And we mentioned Zach Taylor saying, "Look, I have belief." You have belief until you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's unwavering until it wavers you. And I feel like I do. The main question right now is, how long do you ride this out? And I think there's another couple of weeks for Jake, regardless, probably. Look, it's not getting better if Brett Rippon enters.
Right. That's the thing. There's no other options.
Mike White.
Yeah.
Like these are the guys that were brought in when Burrow got hurt were so uninspiring that it's like, what's the point? You're better off seeing if Jake can right the ship rather than seeing if Mike White brings something different. Maybe that could give you a spark for a week or two, but we're talking about an extended period of time. So do they make a trade? I think they're warming to that idea, but I don't think it's hot yet. I think there's still like, look, the ideal outcome here is that this offense gets it together, gets it right under Jake Browning. They start playing at a level that was the expectation from what was set in 2023, and it evens out, and you start getting back on the right track that way because his knowledge of the offense, trust with the players, trust inside of the building with the staff is going to be a lot easier than bringing in somebody from the outside that comes in having to start all the way over. That's probably not much of an upgrade anyway. Whether it's, the Russell Wilson thing, whether it's, they're not going to absorb Kirk Cousins' contract,
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to give up major assets to acquire somebody. But the thing is, the AFC North is so accessible right now.
Yeah.
Like the Ravens being a mess, the Browns being the Browns. I don't think anybody thinks the Steelers are going to run away with anything. I mean, even at whatever they are right now. And so it's sitting right there. So if you feel like you could do something, then maybe they do it. But the bottom line is right now, EPA per dropback out of 33 qualifiers in the NFL, Jake Browning is dead last at negative 0.44. 32nd was Joe Flacco at negative 0.032. He just got benched. 31st is Cam Ford at negative 0.29. And 30th is Bryce Young at negative 0.12. That's how far below everyone Jake Browning is right now. The average is positive 0.05. Jared Goff, who's coming to town this week, leads the league at positive 0.30 EPA per dropback. It's just so ugly. And I think he's got this game. Maybe his runway is to the Pittsburgh game. Where you at some point you can only take on so many. It has to start looking better in the next couple of weeks and probably needs to start looking better on Sunday before you just can't take this many gut punches.
Yeah, so you give him till the Pittsburgh game. If you're 2-5, then at that point, do you even feel like anybody you get is going to be able to rescue? Are you willing to give up assets to trade for somebody on a hope and a prayer that, yeah, the AFC North is accessible right now, but I think it's over if they get to 2-5. Nobody's coming in here and saving that. And do you have that whole list up, or you just have those names? Because where's Russ on that list of EPA per dropback? He's got to be down in the 29, 28 range. And
yes, Russell Wilson was 28th. Yeah,
so,
he's negative.
Yeah. Is that your savior? I mean,
right. Well, that's right. I mean, are you getting Derek Carr's shoulder that he decided to retire and hang off to the side? Is he going to come out? Is he healthy? Is he coming out?
no.
Right. I mean, these are the options that you're talking about. Kirk Cousins is the best option here.
Mm-hmm.
And that would require the team to take a lot of money on and give up an asset to Atlanta, who doesn't seem super willing to trade him.
Yeah.
So I doubt that that's happening. And is any of this fixing some of the problems that currently exist? I don't know. The best scenario, the best thing that could possibly happen on Sunday is that the offense starts to look better and Jake Browning starts to look more like the player they hoped he would be inside of this system, not making mistakes, making a couple of big plays happen, giving some life to the offense to give them some belief that they can build on. If it's ugly again, it only gets louder. The urgency, it pushes them further down that spectrum. I think they've moved from we're not trading for somebody serious. It's moved a little bit the last 2 weeks, as you would expect. It's not into the likelihood yet, but it's moving. It's still, it's got to get that boulder's got to get pushed down the line a little bit more. And a bunch of boos and a blowout loss to the Lions and another day where you scored one touchdown or something like that certainly could move that boulder quite a bit. On that note, Jay, let's do the saddest stats here real quick.
Right.
Okay. So we were kind of talking before the show. And what is the worst point differential in a 3-game span in a single season? We're not doing the end of one season, the beginning of the single season, 3-game span, what the Bengals are about to enter into with whatever happens with Detroit. Currently, the last 2 games, they are minus 63 in the 76-13 point differential. What are the all-time, the modern era, we'll call it post-merger, and Bengals history worst 3-game spans? What do they got to avoid against the Lions?
Well, they have to avoid losing by 74 to set the all-time record, which is owned by the 1934 Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, Cincinnati Reds.
Outscored by 136 over a 3-game span. Since the 1970 merger, still, this one's not in play unless they lose by 55. The 2019 Dolphins, minus 117 the first 3 games of that 2019 season. That's the team that rallied to beat the Bengals in December and bring Joe Burrow to Cincinnati. For Bengals history, this one is accessible. Some might say likely. 2008, from week 11 to week 13, the Bengals were outscored by 80 points. That would mean they would need to lose Sunday by 18 or more to set the franchise record for worst point differential over a 3-game span.
Wow. The 2008 corollaries continue, Jay.
They just keep showing up.
He just keeps showing up. We're at 2008 in the Carson Palmer timeline. And they keep showing up. I mean, that number is very much in play.
It is.
Very much in play. What were are there a couple more?
Yeah, so right behind that, minus 79 weeks 2 through 4 in 1999, minus 69 4 times. Dave Shula's first year in 92, also in 99. 2008 it happened, and in 2018. So 4 times they were outscored by 69. The one in 2018, they actually went 1-2. They won one of those games, but they got blown out in 2 of them, and the second blowout to the Saints resulted in the end of the Terrell Austin era as defensive coordinator.
It should be pointed out a lot of these years you just mentioned resulted in firings.
Yes.
The end of the Terrell Austin era. I mean, you started to get to the end of Bruce Kylzip, the end of Sam Weish. There's a lot of repercussions. 18 also ended up being the end of Marvin Lewis. These are unsustainable stretches in many ways. That was fun, huh? Hey, if you're gonna be bad, be historically bad.
That's right.
That's where the entertainment value lies. So here we are. We'll be tracking that 18. There's the regular spread, there's the historical spread, and then there's hands up. I don't know. What was it? 50, 56?
56
70?
to break the Dolphins, yes.
56 to break the Dolphins? Okay. We'll keep an eye out. You definitely don't want to be touching that Cincinnati Reds mark. We don't want to have to be talking about that again. That is the perfect segue into this week's Run Passer Boot presented by Camargo Insurance and our guy Josh. There he is in the robe, the RPB robe and tie. You know Josh, of course, now. If you have an RPB that you want us to read, send your suggestions to Josh at CamargoInsurance.com, because when you work with Josh at Camargo, it's a true concierge experience. No fluff or runaround, one-on-one help from somebody who gets it, who works with the best carriers in the industry, helps you find the perfect coverage for your home, auto, business, life insurance needs. He's trying to empower you to live your best life with confidence, knowing that you got coverage that actually makes sense. And plus, Josh is giving back to the Growl Pals because he's a good dude, giving away 2 tickets to Bengals versus Ravens, the home game in December. All you got to do is just request a free, no obligation quote. No policy purchase is necessary to enter or win. Then you're entered for a chance to win some seats, and also make sure your coverage makes sense. So a link to enter is found in the show notes, the QR code, or just go to thegrowlerpodcast.com and click on the Win Bengals Tickets button with Camargo Insurance. Okay, all of that. He's the judge and jury. We've got one this week. It's about this Detroit game. This one from John B. What is most likely against Detroit, Jay? What is most likely? The Bengals lose by 25 again? The Bengals score 20 or allow 40? Play this one with your friends, people. Enjoy this. What do you think? Lose by 25, score 20, allow 40. Most likely.
I'm going to run with scoring 20 because I think there's multiple ways to get there. One, I just think being at home is going to be a difference, and this offense is going to be a little better. You know, that playing in Denver, playing in Minnesota, that we saw it. Guys are the edges are blowing by the tackles, and nobody's stood a chance in that one. They can, when you're running the play clock down and they can time that up. I just think things are going to be a lot better here at home. And if they're not, they still can score 20 because there could be some garbage time points. So I think that is the most likely. The other two, I'm really torn. I can see either one happening. But because I do think they're gonna get to 20, I think I'll pass on losing by 25, and I'll boot the Lions scoring 40, which seems crazy because they're number 1 offense in the league, number 1 scoring offense in the league. But again, just being in Cincinnati, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing them giving up 40. They wouldn't have given up 40 to Minnesota if it wasn't for the turnover rash. As bad as they were Monday night, Denver still only got 28. I don't know. I think I have to stick with that. I'll boot giving up 40.
All right. I am going to say that they will score 20. I think I'm with you. I think that's the most likely. I mean, Detroit's defense has been okay. It's certainly nowhere near as strong as their offense, which is a top 5 in basically every metric. So I think there's a chance that you can manufacture some offense here. I'm gonna say lose by 25 is in play, and I'll boot allow 40. It's a lot of points. 40 is a lot, and I know that Detroit can score a lot of points. I mean, they posted a 52 number on the Bears, 38 at the Ravens, 34 against the Browns. There's a chance we see 2 of these 3 if it goes over 40. Certainly,
Yeah.
But I will bet on it staying a little bit more under than that, and so I'll boot allow 40. But I would say they're all in play. How about
45-20? They all hit.
45 to 20, everything hits. It's all in play. And as is everything else when you are working with Josh. So you can win Bengals Ravens tickets. The giveaway forms at the QR code in the show notes at thegrowlerpodcast.com. It just takes 2 minutes. Get a no obligation quote. You don't have to purchase anything. Then you'll have a chance to see the Bengals Ravens or get some insurance that makes sense for you. Your odds are great. Hop on in there and do that now. All right, now let's bring in our good friend and yours from ESPN 1530, Mo Egger. Mo, how's it going?
Wonderful. Things are
Yeah.
great. Yeah, how are
Things
you
are great.
guys?
Well, we were just calculating the worst 3-game spans in Bengals history. If you want to know where we're at in the program right now,
That sounds fun. That sounds like a blast.
I don't. It's one of those where things are in such a bad place, you don't even know where to start. I feel like I keep saying that everything that I go to do this week. Like, where do you start?
Right.
And it's a point now where I just want to open it up to you, to you, over these last 2 weeks, and you were in Denver.
Yeah.
We hung out and shared a delightful beverage or two.
We did.
I enjoyed it. That was when the Reds. People were positive about the Reds at that point after they had clinched.
Did you guys hug too, like James and Mo did?
Yeah, there was an over-aggressive hug, I think, for everyone that was there in that party, which I appreciate. I enjoyed it. You guys had been out for a while, though.
We had been out for a while. What I will always remember about that interaction was we watched a walk-off field goal to force a tie.
We did, together. Yeah. It was great. We were all very confused, but it didn't really matter. Yeah. But I'll say this. What is the biggest concern in your mind from the last 2 weeks of Bengals football?
That the person who put this roster together will be in charge of fixing it. Because that's, for me, like the moment where I started to think about Duke Tobin the most was when I watched Cam Taylor-Britt standing on the sideline being benched for the 3rd time in less than a year. Because that to me was the avatar for, really? Like, you looked at last year's team, last year's defense, and decided, let's bring all these dudes back. That's where I start. I mean,
yeah.
The thing is, like, you know how this works. If you focus so much on one area of the team or one part of the organization, then it's like, well, yeah, but what about Jake Browning? Well, yeah, but what about this? Well, yeah, but what about Zach Taylor? So I just look at it from a 30,000-foot view. This isn't a good team. And its warts have bubbled to the surface because they don't have Joe Burrow. Duke Tobin put this team together and looked at a lot of players who were complicit in last year's demise and said, let's run it back with them. And Duke Tobin's going to be, in all likelihood, the person in charge of fixing it next year and putting together teams that, A, protect Joe Burrow, and B, take advantage of his talents once he's back. That's the most sobering thing. We're comparing these Bengals teams to teams of the 90s. That's never a good place you want to be. And so, Paul, you and I talked about it yesterday. Zach Taylor's team looked unprepared on Monday night. Certainly can throw a lot of blame at him. You want to hang it on some individual players, that's fine. At the end of the day, I've watched a rotten football team that was constructed by the person who in all likelihood is going to try to fix it, and I don't have faith in him.
And I don't know where you go, because I don't know where you go next there, because you end up in this place that you lived in the 90s, kind of, being like, well, what's going to really change? It's going to change this. And well, nothing. Like the ownership is the ownership. The structure is the structure. Everyone in the building is trying to kind of work around it in some capacity, or with it, however you want to view that. And you end up in these places where you feel stuck, and that's where they are. I don't see a world. I'm with you. I don't see a world where Duke Tobin ends up in this mix of whatever changes are made after this year. And that you're right. I mean, that is the big picture issue here that makes you feel like there's no easy way out because of so many problems that we've seen. And also, not somebody in the short term that has any history of pulling you out by making a deal, doing something bold, going after it in trying to aggressively fix some of the problems that you have going on right now. More of a let's just play this out and have patience, which is kind of the organizational standard. And right now just doesn't feel like the time for patience.
You said you didn't see a world where Duke doesn't come back. I mean, if this goes the way we all think it's going to go and end the way it's going to end, is there any scenario where both Zach and Duke are both back? I mean, one or the other has to go, right? If it's the roster construction, it's on Duke. If it's the inability to get anything out of this team, even though you've lost Joe Burrow, then it has to be on Zach. Do you guys see any chance that both of those guys are back next year if this ends up a 5, 6, 7 win season?
Paul, you're more qualified to answer that than I am. If both are back, good luck selling that to people.
Yeah. I think I just don't see Duke Tobin being cut out. I think there's an argument, and I would say the biggest problem that many organizations in this league have is that they don't keep the GM and the head coach intertwined. You end up in this, Chicago's done this a lot. You end up in this, hire the GM and then a different coach and then fire the GM, and that's not his guy, and you end up never aligned. And this came in and this was the first time. I mean, I remember us talking back in 2019, Mo, about the hiring of Zach Taylor, and talking about it was the first time that there was Duke
at the press conference, sitting there with Mike Brown,
at the podium, led this. This is my guy. We're connected, and it was kind of the first time that was really the case. Now, granted, Marvin Lewis was hired in 2003, but it felt like this is Duke and Zach. This is our era. This is our thing. And so if you make the decision, because it goes sideways or whatever happens, to move on from Zach, if that's where this ends, if the season goes totally sideways, we'll play this out. To me, avoiding the mistake that so many people make would be starting over with new general manager and new head coach in a normal world. I don't know that. I mean, the Bengals don't operate in the same world as the rest of the NFL. And so perhaps it's just, all right, Duke, let's go find somebody else. That's probably the most likely aspect, again, under the hypothesis that this season goes further into the tank as it's currently headed. But so that's my long-winded answer, I guess, to that question.
I guess I put myself in Mike Brown's chair or Katie Blackburn's chair, and if Duke Tobin works for me, recognizing his instrumental role in a lot of success here, I imagine sitting across from him going like, "Look, man, what were you thinking?" Right? Like, what were you thinking when you spent? And we've taken deep dives into the offseason as to some of the reasons why it unfolded the way it did. But like a lot of these players who were here last year on defense, you brought them back. Why can't you build a better offensive line? Why are we so dependent on the quarterback being Superman, which he was last year, and we still couldn't take advantage? Like, those questions are piling up. Why do we have a 3rd and 4th round draft choice from last year who can't see the field? Why do we have a lot of guys who were drafted by you that we still don't know what they are and what they could do? Like, there's just those. The questions I would have for Duke Tobin are piling up to the point that I'm not sure he would be able to give me a satisfactory answer to all of them, or really any of them. And when that's the case, then I look at the guy and go, I got to find somebody else. Like, I hate that we're doing this. This is year 6 of Joe Burrow. We're supposed to be talking about the Bengals being perennial contenders. And now we're making comparisons to some of the darkest times in the history of the franchise. That's on Duke Tobin, man. That's on the guy who built these rosters. That's on the guy who made the decisions about what the player personnel is going to be. We all have to operate within the framework of reality when it comes to this team and how patient they are and how loyal they are. And, they don't just, clean house. And I understand all that, but I look at this from a fan's perspective, and I'm watching the last couple of weeks, and I watched how last year unfolded, and I find myself time and again wondering about decisions when it comes to the draft, the roster, offseason inactivity, what they do with their money, and it all comes back to Duke. It all comes back to the front office. So that to me is, again, that's where I start, and I operate under the assumption he'll be back. Maybe he won't be, but I think with the Cincinnati Bengals, for the most part, what you can never go wrong in assuming the status quo is going to remain. So, all right, this coming off season, Duke, you got a lot of work to do. Again, it's like the offensive line thing. They haven't had a good offensive line in 10 years. Right? They haven't had a good offensive line in 10 years, and it's draft choices and free agency and cupcakes and crackers and Lyle Collins at the Kenwood Mall, and but the results are the same. So the same guy, but Duke's going to fix it. Again, and I know I'm rambling here. That dude looked at last year's defense and said, yeah, Geno Stone, let's bring him back. Awesome. Cam Taylor-Britt, not only bring him back, bringing no one in the secondary, and that guy's going to be our CB1. I don't know, man. So this may go completely sideways, and they finish with 4 wins. And hey, but they get a top 10 draft choice, and that's what we'll do, right? Well, you got Joe Burrow, but a top 10 pick. Yeah, cool. Who's going to be making that pick?
Right. I mean, because it's not like you can point to recent drafts and be like, look, gonna keep building that way. Draft, develop, retain. It's been going well. You're right. I mean, it does pile up. I don't know. This ends up being, because it's week 4. Because it's week 4.
Yes.
Week 4. We're playing. It's week 5. It's October 2nd. And we're sitting here and talking about how many people should be fired, how far up the line should it go. And it's wild that we're at this point. But like you said, you'll never go wrong betting on the status quo. You can absolutely, unequivocally see a world, and it's probably the most likely world, that they say at the end, look, it started to come around there in December.
Send them home happy.
Hey, send them home happy. Look, we're talking about comparisons to the 90s here, Mo. What happened in the 90s?
Where are my mood gummies?
It was always at some point. Get the mood pills. Did you keep? Are they in the car, or did you bring them in? Well, I'm just saying. Comparisons to the 90s went like this. It was awful at some point, but then you'd start to see something, and then it's like, look, didn't have Burrow, so give it one more ride with Zach and Burrow and that offense that they, all of that, and the year 2 of Al Golden or whatever.
Oh yeah, Al Golden.
You can hear it now. You can hear it. That's 100% been the way things have operated here forever. Extreme patience. That's why when people are living in my mentions talking about fire Zach Taylor tomorrow and fire Duke and everything else, it's just understand that inside of that building, it's operating at a far different mode of patience than you can even believe. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna let it play out. They're going to give it time. And maybe things change after this year. I've said the whole time it's going to have to go mega sideways for that conversation to happen. It's gone mega sideways the last 2 weeks. Will that continue? I don't know. But I just think understand the patience level in that building is on a different level.
That's why, I mean, you asked that question to Mo. The most concerning thing in my mind didn't even go there because of that. Because I didn't even view that as an option of making a change there. For me, the most concerning thing is this roster that much worse than 2023? How were they able to overcome the Burrow injury in 2023 and go 4-3, look relatively the same? That was a 5-5 team when Burrow went down. This was a 2-0 team. Is it that much? I mean, how does it look like this time, just a year and a half later? That offensive line wasn't that much worse in 20 or that much better in 2023. The defense wasn't that much better in 2023. That's my biggest concern. Is you expected that to kind of be the baseline, what to expect. This team could hover around 500 with Jake Browning, and who knows what happens if they're still 500 and Burrow somehow comes back for the last few games. But to see what it's looked like the last 2 weeks, I just don't get that, how it's gone that far south when there's a template. We've seen it before.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about the Reds roster moving forward, right? Because they made the postseason, which is great. They didn't have a great team this year. It still feels like there's a major leap they have to make to go from barely scraping by and getting into the postseason and legitimately competing for a championship, right? So I've been thinking about, like, right, who are like the main guys? Who are like the main guys you're going to move forward with positionally, because they all have really good starting pitchers. Then do that exercise with the Bengals. You know, they get beaten up for, well, they paid Jamar and T, and that's where they put all their resources. And okay, fine. Who else are you supposed to pay on this team? Right? Who else? Who? Like, who do you look at this roster? Yeah.
Maybe Dax will be one.
Chase Brown, I guess. But
yeah,
who do you want here in 2026? Who on this team are you like beyond the big three who make up the foundation and identity of this team, for better for worse? Here's the guy we want. Here's the guy we're going to invest in. There's nobody. Now, maybe Demetrius Knight, although he'll be at an advanced age by the time he's a free agent, will be one of those guys. Maybe Shamar Stewart's still a dude. Maybe Dylan Fairchild. Like, jury is out.
Maybe
on
Marius Mims. Maybe Mims.
But, like, beyond that,
yeah,
who you got? So, and I think this is something we talked about during the offseason when they did the thing with T. Higgins, and my point was not unlike what it was when they signed Joe Mixon. Who else are you going to pay? Who else are you looking at going, we got to stash some money away to make sure we don't let that guy get away? There's like nobody else, man. I'm not sure there's a more damning indictment on a personnel person than that. You've got all these players that you have acquired, drafted, decided to be Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm not sure I want any of them here next year. Maybe that changes by the end of the season. I'm sure with at least one or two it will. So if we're going to start to think ahead, all right, this season feels like it's circling the drain, and it may get really bad. And that to me is the most sobering thing. Like, I walked out of that stadium on Monday night and said to the people that I was with, like, you think about how bad this might get. Like, that Lions game felt like, when it came on the schedule, it was going to be one of the games of the year. Now, bloodbath. That's what we're all expecting, right? So, but we're going to start to look ahead to next season. All right, who are we building around beyond Joe, Jamar, and T? What do you got? That, to me, is the most damning indictment on a front office, that you cannot identify who the core players are moving forward. You have to have more than three guys who basically make up one component of your team. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have paid Jamar. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have paid T, because, again, who else were you going to give the money to? Moving forward, who else are you going to give the money to? Who do you want here next year? So that would be my question. Duke, You got a roster full of guys. How many of these guys look like they're going to be foundational pieces for the next half of the decade for the final few years of the years you have Joe Burrow under contract for?
I mean, it ends up being like the year where you paid Jermaine Pratt, like, give it to Pratt, right? Like it's where you end up with it. And to me though, and you can't. It's been proven, like you can't just go out there and rebuild it in free agency. Like you're not going to do it that way. You're not going to do it here. You're not set up to do that here. You can't now. You could before when you had $100+ million per year in roster surplus, sitting in the big three on rookie deals. You can't. There was only one way to succeed with this, and that was with draft, develop, retain, and then have some shrewd moves in free agency that aren't at the top of the market. And you're right. I think there is a long way for this to play out. I mean, the fear is that it gets much worse, although it's hard to believe it can look worse than what it's looked like the last 2 weeks. But because we have had times where we've sat here in week 5 and been like, what the hell is going on? But usually that's been because something's wrong with Joe Burrow, right? That's usually been, well, once Burrow gets right, they'll get it figured out. And that's, whether we were sitting here yelling about, I wanted to bring this up, shovel passes. Have you seen the number of shovel pass touchdowns happening around football, Mo?
Yes.
I've been meaning to bring this up to you for weeks.
Yes.
They're back. There's definitely going to be a failed shovel pass in the Bengals' future here really soon, just for you. I can feel it. We're going to be right back in that spot again.
Jackson Dart threw his first NFL touchdown pass on a shovel pass. It shouldn't count. They gave him the ball. They should deflate that and throw that away. Throw it into the Hudson River.
Hey, they're proving successful. It's coming back. It's back in vogue. But that was that year. That was around this time that year, the shovel pass in Baltimore, right? And the demolishing in Tennessee where Burrow can't move. What are they going to do? But it was always like Burrow will eventually figure it out. No one's figuring it out. Burrow's not coming through the door, and that makes it really hard to see it getting better. And that's the only way that this thing salvages itself, and you start seeing players emerge that you do want to pay. The development you were counting on this year, the defining 9, right? Like the 9 players on these rookie deals that were in major roles on this defense. How many of them will emerge and get better? Where you feel like this is our core, this is our future. Not many right now when we start going through that list. And so that's going to be what has to happen to save any of this is for everything we've just talked about is it has to get better through the development of these players starting to come together. But they just, the last 2 weeks, they look lost. They look unmotivated. They look like they lost their leader and, like their dog died. Right. And so I don't know. I don't think this roster is any worse than when we watched Christian Covington and BW Webb and like some of the people in the 2020 and the 2019 time. Like I feel like then they started finding ways to get it together at that point, but I don't know if it does. But I think everyone's sort of got their hand in the cookie jar in this one.
So I guess for me, it's, just kind of circling back to who do you invest in? I mean, Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Cordell Volson, Tyson Anderson, Miles Murphy, DJ Turner, Jordan Battle, Charlie Jones, Amarius Mims, Chris Jenkins, Jermaine Burton, McKinley Jackson, Eric All. A whole lot of dudes taken in the first 4 rounds of the draft over the last 3 years. I'm not sure. There's injuries with Eric All, but I'm not sure how many of those guys moving forward you say, yeah, that's it. We're moving ahead with that guy. But like you mentioned 2019 and 2020, and those are really painful years, especially 2019. But with a few rare anecdotal exceptions, I watched those first 2 seasons and thought, these guys are playing for Zach Taylor. I don't know if he's going to be the guy, but it feels like, good God, a game that every Bengals fan alive wanted them to lose. They played their hearts out. I mean, like, so the game on Monday was the first time that I really thought, like, they can't count to 11. They can't line up correctly. Guys on the sideline, we sat right behind the sideline, look checked out. This looks lifeless, disorganized. This is what it looks like when you have a team where maybe there's a disconnect between the coach and the players. I never felt that way in 2019. Somebody said on our air, it wasn't me, that the game on Monday was the antithesis of the 2019 game against the Steelers, where they won with Ryan Finley.
Oh, right.
Where it was, all right, Burrow's hurt. We're out of it. Pittsburgh's coming to town. We're going to find a way. We're gonna piece together a way to win this football game. Stadium's empty because of COVID, like 10,000 people there. We have Ryan Finley, who would never take another snap in the NFL after that day. And we're going to find a way to beat a good Steelers team, although a Steelers team that was maybe not as good as the record would indicate. We're going to find a way to piece together something that allows us to be competitive tonight. And not only were they competitive, they won. And to this day, I think that's, in a way, Zach Taylor's greatest victory. Like, I walked out of the stadium that night going, this is a good night for the Bengals head coach. Like, and they did it the next week on the road against a pretty crappy Houston team with a different quarterback. Monday night was the antithesis of that. It was essentially, to me at least, a staff throwing its hands up going, we got nothing. We can't figure out how to run the ball. We can't figure out a way to construct a game plan around our experienced backup quarterback. We can't count to 11. Guys can't line up. We're punting on the first drive of the game when we get into Denver territory. We're calling weird timeouts that don't make any sense. We're calling running plays to start the 2-minute offense to end the first half. Like, we're out of ideas. I don't know. And so, yes, I look at the roster and go, Duke, you put this together, and there aren't a lot of guys to move forward with. But when it comes to Zach, that was the first time that I watched him and went, this feels poorly coached. We just talked about this last week, guys. Like, I'm not a gratuitous Zach Taylor basher. I went out of my way right here a week ago to talk about all the things I think he has deserved credit for and not gotten nearly enough of. I watched that game on Monday and I'm like, this feels like the Saints game Marvin's last year, where you're like, oh man, like they got a problem. This felt like Coslet's last game in 2000, 37-0. Corey Dillon refuses to enter the game, where you're like, all right, this isn't going to work. So, yeah, it's Duke putting together the roster. But that was a low point, the low point, I think, in Zach Taylor's time, where it felt like the coaching staff had no idea, felt like they had lost the team, felt like the team was totally unprepared. That's typically something you might see right around Christmas.
Yeah.
We hadn't even flipped the calendar to October yet on Monday night. So I don't know, man. Like, yes, my ire is aimed at the construction of the roster, but I have seen this head coach in the past with a roster not as good piece together an effort that won him a football game that nobody expected. Monday was the opposite of that.
No doubt. I think Monday changed the entire discussion in terms of the reality of the way things look, where it was the first time that there really were no excuses and it started to pile up on them. Mo, I'll turn you loose to go do this again for 3 hours, which will include Reds talk this afternoon. I hope that will go well. You know what you were talking about, who the big three would be in comparison to the Reds. And I thought it'd be kind of like the Bengals making the playoffs, but deciding to sit Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. No, we're going to bring Jamar in only in 13 personnel packages for 10 plays, and no T. Higgins. We're just going to sit him on the sideline. We'd rather he didn't participate. I'll leave you at that. See you, Mo.
See ya.
Who is the Bengals' key Brian Hayes?
Mitch Tinsley.
I like
there.
Mitch.
You go.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
See you.
Bye, Mo. All right, much thanks to Mo for joining us. As it's just dark times. It's Cincinnati sports or Cincinnati sportsing right now, Jay.
Yeah.
It's a tough scene out there for everyone. FC Cincinnati, go. They've got some nice things going on. Go give them some love at this point if you want to feel happiness.
For optimism, think about this: that the Bengals advancing in the postseason drought went from 1990 to 2021, so 31 seasons. The Reds, 1995, 31 years. 2026 is the year. Every 3 decades, these teams get to have a good season where they advance. And if you want to look, I've got another stat here that can bring a little bit of positivity, a little bit of hope. Or if you want to go the other direction, maybe some red meat for the fan base that's out there with the pitchforks. So
let's hear it.
The Bengals have 821 yards of offense through 4 games. That's the third lowest, the first 4 games of the season. That's the third lowest total in franchise history through the first 4 games of a season. The lowest was 2000. They had 645 yards. They finished the way you would expect. They finished 29th in the league, averaging 265 yards per game. The other lowest behind this one, 1996, 810 yards through 4 games. They turned it around. They finished 10th in the league at 326 yards per game. You know what sparked that turnaround?
Let me guess. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can say it.
They fired the head coach.
Yeah.
They fired Dave Shula after 7 games. The Bengals offense was number 3 in the league after that firing. That wasn't one of those years. Jeff Blake started all 16 games. That wasn't like when he came in and took over, when Boomer came in and had that crazy run. This was the same quarterback, same offense the entire season. Things turned around in a hurry after they said goodbye to Dave Shula after 7 games.
Yeah. I mean, the most amazing part of all of that is like it will never cease to amaze me that Dave Shula was still around in 1996.
I know.
It's incredible the fact that he was able to last that long.
Also with a 2-0 start in his first year.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's get into this game a little bit, Jay, and talk a little bit about what to expect on Sunday and what we're looking for. The basics, 4:25 kick at Paycor Stadium. Bengals are back at home again. A lot has changed since we last anticipated them playing a home game. But here we are. The BetMGM line has pushed all the way to the Lions as 10.5-point favorites in Cincinnati. What is the longest home, the biggest home dog the Bengals have been? That's since the 2020 game that Mo was talking about earlier.
Actually, it was that 2020 finale. They were bigger. They were 10 and I don't remember the exact line, but they were double-digit underdogs to the Ravens in that game, and they lost 38-3. So that was 2 weeks after the upset on Monday Night Football that year. 23rd time in franchise history they've been double-digit underdogs at home.
Have you already played out the stats on how those games went?
Oh yeah, they were 8-14 in those games. They actually won a good amount of them. So
there you go.
Surprising.
Who says we didn't deliver hope
There you go.
today? Who says we didn't deliver hope? It's not all sad. Look, I got something. I have literal sunshine for you. 87 degrees and sunny is the expectation. What else do you want? Go enjoy a lovely day out. The garage doors will be open at Tom's Watch Bar. You can go down to your tailgate after that, sit in the stadium with your friends. You know what? If booing makes you happy, go boo in the sun. Enjoy the outdoors, take in some fresh air. It could be great. And you never know. You never know when something very surprising is going to happen. It's going to be great weather. How about that? Great weather for you. I don't know what else I could say. Go drink outdoors. All right.
You got an extra 3 hours to drink outdoors.
Yeah. What else do you want? Uniform combo. What's our uniform combo this week, Jay?
It's the Super Bowl combo. It's black jerseys, white pants, orange stripes, and then the orange socks. So,
all right, the classic, I would say.
Yeah, I think that is a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah, the last time these two teams met, it's Stripe the Jungle. So,
yeah,
if you're able to understand your section and what color you're supposed to be wearing, maybe it can be pulled off. So the striping the jungle. I have a feeling the stripes are going to have a lot of Honolulu blue in them.
I'm kind of wearing my Honolulu blue right now.
You kind of are.
Unintentionally.
I think that, yeah. The stripe the jungle thing isn't as great when it's just covered in blue. It'll make the blue very much stand out.
Yeah.
All these Detroit fans are coming down. The ticket prices were super high because Detroit fans are traveling like no other these days. And this is a really close game for them to travel down to. So there's tons of Detroit fans running up the ticket prices. And those numbers have come down because supply and demand has allowed these Lions fans to buy them all up. So I'm expecting that we will see a lot of Lions fans at this game. They basically, if you one to go back, they basically invaded Indianapolis last year, I think. They're just, especially when it's close like this, they're traveling like Pittsburgh has been known to do over the years right now, just because their fan base is so rabid.
They've had a lot of time to save up.
They
were bad for a long time.
No doubt. They're very much into like 21-22 Bengals mode of fan fervor. Speaking of that, last meeting between these two teams, the Bengals won 34-11 in 2021. Dan Campbell's first year. It was early in that season. The Lions were winless. Zach Taylor talked about that yesterday, about how they were winless, but you could see the team with a bunch of undrafted free agents and guys that weren't talented enough playing hard and starting to develop that mentality that Dan Campbell has built that thing around, of these just very tough, hard-nosed, physical, built through the trenches, beat you up teams. The grit, the Detroit grit, so to speak. And so you could see that then. The Bengals were far more talented and on a roll those days, but it's kind of like the shoes on the other foot. It feels like we're flipping that this time. Let's talk Bengals growler bet, shall we? I'll try to buzz through these quickly because we've got a couple to get back through. We had the Ron Torbert bet that ended up in a 5-way tiebreaker. We had the 5 people that tied for the answer of 45 in that game, in the Torbert game in Minnesota. All offered how many penalty yards would be in the Sunday Night Football game between the Cowboys, the Packers, and there were a ton. 148 was the number for Ron Torbert, and so we had the highest pick of the 5. Nobody went that high. Nobody thought Ron would be that evil, but he was. And so congratulations to Dan Reesing, who had 132 and wins the tiebreaker. You have drinks on me at one of our live shows down at BetMGM. So hit me up and let me know when you're coming, and we will have that ready for you whenever you can make it down. Now, last week's growler bet was Chase Brown yards per touch. They tried to unlock him a little bit. He ended up with 5.5 yards per touch. It was 71 yards on 13 touches. He was 10 carries for 40 yards, right on 4.0, and then had 3 receptions for 31 yards. So 5.5. We had 2 people guess 5.5. We had a tiebreaker in there, which was his total yards from scrimmage. Trevor Messakar and Jeff Highland both had 5.5. And Jeff, you were so close. Sorry, you lost the tiebreaker. Trevor is the winner of the tiebreaker. It's 77. Pretty good. I came away victorious last week, Jay. I was pretty close. I had 5.2. You were much more optimistic at 6.6.
Yeah. They should have thrown it to him more. Felt like there was a big screen there.
There was no doubt. Where's the screens? Where's the check downs? It's crazy. Sorry. I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. All right. On that note, let's get into, this week's growler bet. I think, Jay, point differential. Yeah.
That sounds good.
I think we just do point differential. It's kind of where we're at with this. It's kind of been a bit of a theme. Where's your faith today? I don't think they're going to lose by 69, but I know you guys are going to guess that. And we're okay with that. We understand who you are. Maybe you're going there. So give us the point differential in this game. Maybe you think the Bengals are going to win. Bengals +3. Let us know what you think the point differential is going to be in this game, whether the Bengals win or lose. Tiebreaker is going to be yardage differential, which obviously was notable last week in Denver. And so if you have this, if you think you end up in a tiebreaker, make sure you follow instructions. So many of you get eliminated for not following instructions. So you're sending us the point differential, what you think it's going to be, whether it's Lions plus 28 or Bengals plus 4, whatever you have there, and then the yardage differential that you think it's going to be. Those are the two numbers you should be sending to us. Put Growler with something funny in the subject header. We'll give you a shout out. There was a bunch of them last week, but I'm trying to keep this tighter. We have a lot to get through here. Okay. What do you got, Jay? Well,
Yeah,
I guess you're giving away your prediction a little bit.
Yeah.
Give me your yardage differential. How about that?
My yardage differential is going to be Lions by 77.
Wow, so you're just nice and easy.
Yeah,
it's pretty nice. I'll say Lions by 125, and we'll get into my point differential here momentarily. Stat that matters. What's the stat that matters for you, Jay?
I'm going to go rushing yards or yards per carry. I'll go rushing yards total for the Lions. If the Bengals can keep that manageable, I mean, that's such a great with Jamar Gibbs and the Cincinnati kid, David Montgomery. They run the ball so well. If they're just running it all over the Bengals, I think this can get ugly in a hurry, because then it sets up the play action. And when Goff starts throwing the ball, it's not going to be 10-yard outs. It's going to be big shots. It's going to be chunks. It's going to be touchdowns, and it's going to get out of hand pretty fast. So I think the key is to try to bottle up somehow that run game. And if they can keep the Lions, if they keep Gibbs and Montgomery in manageable yardage numbers, I think you've got a chance. For me, that is the key stat.
The key stat when teams are bad, when they're mismatched, is just turnovers. It's the only thing that can flip these games. Now, can you get Jared Goff to make a mistake? Can you get a couple of fumbles out? Jared Goff with 9 touchdowns and 2 picks so far. He's been safe with the ball. You don't have to worry as much about turnovers when you're able to just shove it down the other team's throat, which plays into what you're saying. I mean, Gibbs is averaging 4.7. Montgomery's averaging 5.7 for a carry right now. I mean, they bust explosive runs. They shove it down your throat. They get up and they just put the game away by pounding you, and you have no shot. I think turnovers is probably where this thing it probably needs to be for the Bengals. So I think they have to be at least probably +2 in turnover margin in order to have a chance, because they're mismatched right now in terms of the level of play. And it's gonna take something like that, probably a defensive score even, for this thing to end up a game that the Bengals can go win. All right, what's your prediction?
So the Bengals can set positive franchise history on Sunday. They have currently a 7-game winning streak against the Lions. That is tied for the longest winning streak against a single opponent in team history. They also had a 7-game one time against the Browns. They had a 7-game one time against the Oilers. If they could win on Sunday, 8-game winning streak would be a franchise record. They've won 10 of 11 against the Lions. Last time the Lions won was 1992. Dave Shula going back to those teams again.
Oh, man, why do we have to keep mentioning 1992?
They had 95 yards of offense in that game and no offensive touchdowns. So that's how bad that was. I don't see them setting that record. I don't know if anybody is going to pick the Bengals to win this game, but I do think they keep it close. I do think it makes a difference being at home. I'm going to be kind of right on the number over under. I'm going to go 28-21 Lions. I think the Bengals get to 20. I already said that in the run, pass, or boot. And I think they keep it close. They cover the spread. So going back to the growler bet, my point differential 77, yardage differential is -77. So, or -7 for the points, -77 for the yards. 28-21 Lions.
Okay. I do not think it's going to be close. I don't see it. I just think things are reeling too far right now. The Lions are too hot. They're too good. And I said earlier, I think that it's kind of the exact opposite of that 2021 time where the Bengals came in and were playing great and the Lions were still trying to figure things out and kind of a mess. So I'm going to say the same score as that game, just flipped. Lions 34, Bengals 11 it will be the score. So I have 23 points as the differential there on that one. And I think Detroit has really piled it on in the fourth quarter on teams this year. They've outscored teams 52-26 because they wear you down. They beat you up and they wear you down. And if you're not ready for that fight, and it seems few are with this team right now, you saw that the way that they kept pushing against Baltimore in Baltimore with one of the most impressive wins of the season, even though the Ravens are kind of falling apart a little bit. You see the way that they can wear teams down and beat you up. And I think that you'll see that here, where I think the Bengals can keep it within a reasonable striking distance. But as that third and fourth quarter wear on, I just think the Lions just start sticking to them, and they end up beating them up pretty good. Is how I see it. The thing here is, I was going to make this my stat that matters because I think in the big picture, I mean, it's ridiculous that we're here having to talk about being competitive, but look, it's where we're at right now when you consider the last 2 weeks. They cannot get mollywopped again. Like at home crowd, ready to boo, pissed off. And I don't, the state of things really can't handle too many more of those. We can't be sitting here talking about the worst 3-game span in Bengals history. We can't be talking about the 2019 Dolphins. Don't go challenging the 2019 Dolphins, right? Don't lose by 69. Don't end up in this area where we're having to pull out these historical lows. And it feels like it could go that way. It can't look like that. Give belief. Give some sense that this thing is getting back onto the right track, that this team can see themselves powering through this. Because right now, like, the fact that there's so little is the biggest thing that they're fighting. They've got to establish some kind of belief inside of that locker room again, that it's not going to look like it has looked the last 2 weeks, because they certainly on Monday didn't look like a team that had any belief that it would. To me, that's the most important thing coming out of this game. And I know this is supposed to be the NFL, and this team is supposed to have Super Bowl aspirations. Yeah, a lot of things were supposed to happen. They're all out the window now. Now it's find competitiveness on Sunday against the Lions and build belief back from where it's at right now, which is, close to all-time lows within that locker room.
Yeah, that is the key, because they're not going to quit. You can't play this game and not go all out, but the belief part, the confidence part is huge. And if you lose a third straight game, then it is out the window. I mean, you get a lot of head scratching and a lot of doubts and a lot of side glances in that locker room, and that's when it gets really bad.
Yeah. And this is the time of year where it spirals. I mean, this is bad teams spiral in October, like spiral. Okay. This is when it starts to happen. The teams that can find some level tend to come up back to this level in October. And so, we know kind of who the Bengals are learning that they are, but they've got to establish a new level here in the next couple of weeks against Detroit and at Green Bay. All right. This was fun, Jay. Didn't we have fun? Don't we love that this is where we're at with this?
Wait for the walkout
season. Yeah. Right. You know what? It's a mood improvement from what happened on the walkout on Monday. It was late. I gotta say,
yeah,
I've gotten some reaction to my meltdown on Monday night. In my defense, it was the middle of the night. We were recording. I'm in Denver, Colorado. We're on the road. I knew I had to get up for an early flight. You just had to watch that mess. Lance had tweeted out that he spit his coffee out twice. I'm curious which parts that was. But my favorite part was watching you sit there and just take it all in and just be like, oh my, just let me just unravel. At some point, I feel like you should have put the stop sign up on me. You should have been the third base coach and be like, stop. It's too much. But you were just sitting there just watching as your eyes got wider and wider as I couldn't stop myself. I apologize. I don't do that often, but only I try to do it when it matters. But I think there was no running from the fact that one was different. And so thanks. I guess thanks for letting me just get that off.
Yeah. Well, I was enjoying it. I was like, oh, where's this going to go? How much longer?
How much
content.
longer?
Can't put up a stop sign.
Oh, man. All right. Wave me through. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Who Day Light tomorrow, where we will try to keep it light. Send in your questions. Honestly, if you have some stuff totally not even football related, we'll take them at this point because everybody needs probably a break from this current conversation. So Mark and I will be back with that tomorrow. Make sure you send that stuff in to us to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com or just any thoughts that you want to send to us. We're here for all of it. And then we'll have the walkout with you from Paycor Stadium on Sunday. So thanks everybody for listening and for watching. We'll talk to you next time.